If I had a nickel for every time I've seen someone begin V-Rising, watched a sponsored video for V-Rising, had a random recommendation for V-Rising from someone I didn't even really know, I'd probably have about a half a buck, so that's not bad. But the fact remains that I have seen this game everywhere, and it looked cool. Not to put down the aspects that everyone always brings up, like the large collection of boss fights, the day-night system, bro.
That right there, the thing that we gaming goblins are scared of, they turned that into a mechanic. Ow.
The sunlight has several effects, but most interestingly, it forces you to avoid prolonged exposure to sunlight, otherwise you'll take massive damage. I had someone tell me, quite enthusiastically I might add, that he had to fight a boss in the shade of a lamppost of all things.
That sounds incredible, genuinely. But those things alone aren't enough for me to need to jump into V-Rising, even if my group is nothing without a good survival craft game to sink our teeth into.
I mentioned in the Steam Next Fest video that my favorite is Valheim. I am unbelievably excited for the Deep North's release at the end of the year, fingers crossed. But it's the combination of things like building and creating a solid base feeding into other aspects like deliberate combat, hoarding resources to make sure everyone has equipment worth a damn, the biomes that progressively get more dangerous but also have more valuable resources. Games like Enshrouded might be categorized in the same genre, but to me, Enshrouded is far less about creating a base that can weather spontaneous enemy raids, and more so making something more aesthetically pleasing and nice little virtual homes for your NPC vendors. Enshrouded is a co-op adventure game first and a thoughtful survival game second. I enjoy Enshrouded for that reason, but even something like Sons of the Forest gives you a reason to make your base as fortified as possible because of the constant threat of the creatures attacking it. And also maybe because the combat in Sons of the Forest isn't really good. But it's the fact that games like Valheim and now V-Rising integrate the survival, combat, base building, and even progression together in a cohesive way that I'm more willing to give it the time of day. When it finally received its 1.0 launch, my group and I were in between games, the large $35 price tag was slashed down to $18, and we saw a prime opportunity to fight a boss entirely in the shade of a lamppost ourselves, so we decided it was a perfect time to see what the hype was all about. And the 1.0 thing is important to note here. I know what it's like to buy into a game during early access and see those content drops trickle in and experience the game in chunks. It's not a bad way of experiencing something by any means. It hasn't killed any of my excitement for Valheim, but I'm grateful that I waited for V-Rising's official release because, yeah, the road to 1.0 has been long and filled with bugs, I'm sure. What game isn't though? But my main thing is that this is the kind of game that you just want to jump in and let it swallow you whole.
I swear, these vor euphemisms, they're not intentional, but before I make you wince anymore, let's go ahead and get started. This is V-Rising.
As I like to do with these large endeavor survival crafting games, I like to purchase my own server before we even jump in. It makes it so much easier when everyone has constant access to the game independent of everyone else. I love that each of us have the ability to jump on while the others are away to maybe gather resources or, in Nick's case, play Barbie Dreamhouse and fix up the castle. Right as I jump in, I realize that this isn't like the typical survival game. The first thing I picked up on is the perspective. I'm not usually one for ARPGs. The perspective itself isn't my kryptonite, it's got more to do with how these games structure their in-game loot grind. That is a whole other can of worms though. I can enjoy these games, I just know they're not my preference because it doesn't really lend itself to the kind of gameplay I frequent. Here in V-Rising, however, I immediately appreciate how the perspective doesn't disencourage fast-paced and mechanically deep combat. Even as quickly as the beginning hours of the game, the weapons you can unlock feel great. Nothing too in-depth, they all come with a basic combo that's about 3 or 4 hits long. After you take damage, which you will take damage, you'll need to use Blood Mend. This has you stand in place and slowly regenerate health from your current blood reserve. During combat, you can only regain health to the black portion of your health. You're totally helpless during this process though, so you have to stay alert. Thankfully, Blood Mend is cancelable by any of your other skills, allowing you to bait out the basic counter you start with. This will block any damage from a physical attack and repulse any surrounding enemies back. I loved this, but as we later found out with the discovery of more spells, you have a limited selection of equipable skills and spells on your hotbar. You discover other magic spell schools and gain ability points to spend in each school as you defeat the bosses of the game. Some act as different flavors of blocks, counters, dashes, and of course other offensive attacks. So when you get iron weapons that have 2 skills per weapon type, you get to start building your character towards the playstyle you want. Take me as an example. About 7 hours into the game, I honestly wasn't vibing with the combat as a whole. Not to say it was bad or anything, but I hadn't found any weapons or spells that really spoke to me. I enjoyed using the chaos magic spell Power Surge because it would increase my attack speed slightly, and if I hit enemies they would become ignited. If an enemy is killed with the ignite status, they explode in a small radius, damaging nearby enemies. This came in handy when fighting mobs of weak enemies like the undead.
Oh my goodness gracious.
But I was just using skills like that for a while. There wasn't a real vision for my skills or any particular way I was taking anything. That all changed when we unlocked the claw weapons. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but the mobility was a pretty big plus. One skill saw me choosing a horizontal area to leap to, and any enemy within that space would take damage, but I would also bounce off of them, giving me plenty of time to then pop another buff like Blood Rage, a buff that applies to myself and any squad mates around me. It ups attack speed, damage, heals myself and the allies, as well as letting me leech life from my damage for 4 seconds. Pairing those abilities with the dash you get from the Storm School, my bread and butter was raising my attack speed higher and higher, complementing the already high attack speed of the claws. It was at this point when I really started to feel like I could contribute in combat. Boss fights no longer felt like I was only tickling that huge health bar. I had genuine combos I had to hit, and cooldowns I had to manage to do the most damage. The other guys found their way with their own weapons and were keen on experimenting throughout the playthrough, which is what I probably should have done more.
Did you see him go boom?
I did not. What move are you using to make him go boom?
You weren't paying attention!
I was literally fighting for my life.
What are we?
I really only swapped in and out of ultimate attacks, eventually settling on this AoE shield and illusion type. But the claws were what I felt truly comfortable with, so I stayed. And for the most part, the resource grind is pretty typical. You still hit trees to gather wood, rocks to gather stone. I appreciate how the different weapon types have bonuses for harvesting corresponding resources. It's not much, but it makes you a little more conscious when gathering stuff. We did run with the server-wide resource gathering cranked from the base 1.0 to 1.5 times the original rate. But only because we know how to f***ing hit trees, you know? The more unique things like blood essence is given when you kill a creature or enemies, but on top of that, you have other things like cotton and other small resources that become really tedious to collect for every member of the team, especially with the ballooning cost of the items you need to make. Take the Hollow Fang armor set. After we gained access to it, we needed to make it for everyone so they could then use it to branch off and create the armor set that would make the most sense for their build. Each set of armor needs 48 cotton and 32 wool thread, and then that's not even counting the resources that we'll all have to then spin off into the specialized sets. Yeah, the bump in resources gained helps, but we can't be harvesting every single piece of material we need for every little project. That's where minions come in. And to talk about minions, I need to explain blood types really quickly. As vampires, we obviously need to drink blood to sustain ourselves.
Yeah, I'm more a sanguinarian vampire, in that I rely more on the life force energy, per se.
The large red globe in the bottom middle of the screen is my current blood reserve. This is what Blood Min pulls from to heal any damage I lose. You do have to watch it during battles though. Depending on the blood type acquired, your character will gain different perks. When you encounter enemies or other creatures in the world and hover the mouse over them, you can see what percentage and type their blood is. It can be things like warrior, rogue, worker, or even creature. These particular blood types will give you specific bonuses if you have consumed that blood type. And looking at the menu, you can see that the higher the blood quality, the more passive bonuses you'll gain access to. This makes it favorable to keep these high percentage blood types as long as you can. But if you use Blood Min, that blood begins to drain. This makes it kinda tough to hang on to those valuable blood types. This is why you're eventually able to craft prisons which can house creatures and enemies. This allows you to keep these creatures alive by feeding them food items. Once they're behind these bars, you essentially have that blood on tap, able to tap the creature for their blood, making vials for use in the field. You do have to be careful to not kill them while tapping their blood, as it does drain health, but other than that, as long as you can keep them happy and don't let their health drain, you basically have an unlimited source of these high percentage blood types. Sorry that was a bit of a tangent, but if your prison is full of great blood types, or you just see a guy that you think you could make better use of, you can dominate them. putting them under mind control and taking them back to the castle to turn them into vampire servants. From there, you can send these servants on missions to gather resources with their success rate tied to how high their blood percentage is and what equipment you give them. But these servants are incredible at cutting down the mindless grinding even further. We always made sure to either imprison or dominate any high blood types we saw. It just made the journey to the bosses a little less arduous. And the bosses are a big reason why you're playing this game.
Wow,
Dude, that's a pussy. That's Atlanta pussy.
It is.
Yeah.
The number of unique fights is staggering, with each of them giving you meaningful upgrades and materials to progress up the list, one after another. Whether it's a point for a magic school, a new material to make something we need to progress, or a new animal transformation. These were really cool to look forward to and discover, but for as many forms as you get from defeating bosses, a great deal of them feel pretty useless. The wolf is probably the most important transformation as far as I measure.
Just some fellow wolves.
Hello,
Gentlemen,
brethren.
evening.
It has the most consistent ground travel speed, and you get it practically as soon as the playthrough starts. Even after you dominate your own horse, which is great for moving quickly, it's easily the fastest method of going from place to place on the ground. That wind-up to summon the horse takes forever. And in the places like the Sun Village where enemies have those guns that stun you, it's tough to get away. And even if you can summon the horse, it's not uncommon for you to get hit with one of those guns while running away, knocking you off the thing. And if those Sun Warriors don't let you up, which they have a habit of doing, you could be saying goodbye to your demonic steed sooner than expected. The wolf is markedly faster on the transformation and is still faster than walking. We even got use out of the wolf in the late game areas. The bear transformation is useful for harvesting a resource during one tier of the game, but quickly loses relevance after that. It's able to attack, but your weapons will outdamage the form before it even gets a chance. Then there's the bat transformation that acts as your in-game reward for fast travel. Easily the coolest transformation. Being able to fly around the map over areas that were totally off limits was great. It gave me the same feeling as getting an airship or something of the sort at the end of an RPG. The other transformations, though, they were next to useless. The rat was funny to use and walk around as. I think I found a grand total of one place where we could use the rat form to get to an optional area. After that, it was only good for a laugh. I did forget that the human form was good for going shopping in the human villages, but after that section, you won't be using it because there are vampire merchants later in the game that will do business with you in your vampire form. The spider form has no use. You can dig into the ground to escape the sun, but just and walk into the shade. I don't remember ever walking somewhere where there wasn't shade within walking distance. And the frog, again, it was funny, but it didn't have a practical use. I thought there was going to be a unique way to get into one of the shard bearers areas using the frog jump, but it was too high. So maybe I just didn't look hard enough for these transformations' alternative uses, but I didn't see them? I suppose it's possible to see these transformations as tiers of gear that you'll eventually upgrade past and then never need again, but I think they could have been given a little more utility to make them more than that. These forms were primed for making travel and exploration more interesting too. I think back to the 4th generation of Pokemon where you had so many HMs that allowed you to reach extra areas. Yes, it was annoying to have those Pokemon that knew those moves, but seeing those optional paths was never not enticing. You see them and say, oh man, that's a new area, I gotta get up there. V Rising could have pulled that off, but better because you always have access to these transformations. I wouldn't have hated more bosses being hidden too. It was cool that you could spontaneously run into them in the world, but putting those transformations to work would have been a better option to me. It really was shocking to look at the V-Blood menu and see just how many bosses are in the game. Every boss, along with having a unique moveset, have unique behavior. You have the typical ARPG movesets to deal with. Bosses that will charge across the screen in a straight line, throwing a spread of magical projectiles.
Damn it, you damn deer!
All the way down to your basic melee swings. But the secret sauce are the few bosses that don't behave like bosses are supposed to. Beatrice the Tailor won't fight you at all. She's an old woman who runs around the town screaming and alerting the guards and the other villagers to help her. We had to have some people staying on top of her while the others kept the villagers busy. The ice theme bosses were challenging on a whole other level because of their ability to freeze each player. Vincent and his Tokyo drifting after he froze me always felt like he was just emoting on me before he gave me the pump shotgun to the face. The Frost Maw was just a claustrophobic fight in general since we found him in a narrow walkway. Then there was Krieg the Undead General. We were getting our asses kicked, my guy. We were on the ropes. Everyone was down except for my brother. We were going to have to restart the fight before before a miracle happened.
Oh my god, there's another bitch.
No, we got a problem.
There's another boss in here.
Oh no, I'm
Oh
dead.
my god. Dude, are they fighting each other? They're fighting each other. Guys, they're fighting each other. Dude, she hits so fucking hard. I'm dead.
Y'all are doing damage to her.
We're dead. We're all dead.
Oh, she
Well,
got hit.
honestly, she's dead.
The arena killed her.
Oh
Hey, wait,
my god.
Thank you,
Wow. What a, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's crazy.
We didn't deserve either of those kills, but I'm glad we got them. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were saved by another boss who found their way to the arena and started throwing hands with Krieg. After watching them take each other out, we consumed them both. It's unavoidable that you'll accumulate these boss fight stories as you play. There was Terra the Geomancer. She wasn't so bad when she was simply in her human form, but then she could hit like a truck and summon minions that increase her defense dramatically, but she became a real problem when she turtles inside her large rock golem form. This thing had so many huge attacks and could wombo combo us with its shockwave moves. But Terra would make stones on the ground, and the cool thing about this boss mechanic is that it talks to another mechanic. If the fight spills over into the daytime, the sun will beat down on the area and make it next to impossible to stay alive. But these rocks she shoots up give just enough shade to jump in and out during the daytime. Ah, it's so cool. That's just one example of how these game systems can interact out of so many. Then there are the 4 Soul Shard bosses. These guys all drop unique pendants when they die. There can only be one of each pendant on a server. I assume in a PvP server, these are sought after trophies of a sort. They give really great buffs as well as powerful ultimate attacks to the wearer. When looking on the map, you can see exactly where these pendants are, so the player who wears them is never safe. After each player grabs the blood key from beating this guy, everyone can enter the final boss's arena and face Dracula. I'll tell you what, we had some trouble with some bosses. We had our fair share where the strat was just to stay alive, because reviving each other was out of the question with how crazy the boss's moveset is. This was a common occurrence, but with Dracula, this was out of the question. If one player dies and you can clutch it out, definitely revive your friend.
I ain't got time for you.
Oh, get him away from me!
I'm
Levi,
sorry.
What have you done?
But due to how bat crazy this fight gets with the projectiles covering the arena, the only time you'll be rezzing is during a phase change or just getting extremely lucky. So instead, you'll be giving up and respawning right before warping into the boss. This means no cheesing the boss by keeping one player alive in the room. Everyone has to do it in one life, and man, this guy took some trial and error. We had all moved away from that blood counter skill I mentioned in the beginning because we were all more interested in dealing damage, and the other fights let us get away with that reckless playstyle. We all re-equipped the counter as an extra defensive option because getting stuck in between dodges is a death sentence. We had to learn this fight more so than any other, learning that he's vulnerable during his wolf transformation, destroying his crystals in the second phase makes the arena less hazardous, he will grab you after his bat storm attack so you have to be ready to dodge it. He's an intense fight, but thanks to Nick and my brother clutching it out, we eventually beat him.
What about summons?
Hey,
Summons,
that does
There we
it.
go.
And that's the game. If we had a PvP server to continue grinding for, it might be worth playing the game further to get materials and continually using the Ancestral Forge to get weapons with the best possible passives, but for our needs, we're good. We had a great time with V Rising. It took me a few sessions to sink my teeth into it and really get the feel for how the game needs to be played, but eventually I found my groove. If base building is your thing, I have it on good authority that you will have so many tools at your disposal to make a castle worthy of Dracula, with so many different decorations that you could spend hours on this aspect alone.
In the meantime, I'm just gonna put them over there.
I'm putting stuff there.
Damn it!
Resource gathering is fun when it needs to be, but I would recommend juicing the gather rate a little bit like I did, just in case if hitting rocks and trees aren't your favorite thing to do in games. But the combat, build crafting, and bosses is where I think this game shines. To repeat, there is a comically long list of unique bosses that you'll have to face. Not to mention running into Simon f***ing Belmont.
Holy shit.
What's his level?
You can't get
It's red.
If survival crafting games are your and your group's thing, then I think you will have a great time with V Rising. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you want to stay up to date with me and everything we do here on CPG, then I ask that you might subscribe here on YouTube if it sounds like a good idea. You can join our community Discord server to goof off and send memes. One of my Patreon supporters said that we should all get together and play that game A Big Walk, and I think that that sounds like an incredibly fun idea. Oh my god, I would love that. And like those Patreon supporters, if you really enjoy what I do here, you can support me there to gain access to ad-free and uncensored versions segments of my videos, exclusive videos that only patrons get access to, and so much more. My current $10 patrons, WhiteGhost117 and NikkiCoon99, can attest to these rewards. Thank you both so very much, and I love ya. But anyway, I appreciate you for watching. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.